Morning. Hello, Paul. How are you?
Lovely. Very happy.
You all right? You're very happy? Brilliant. Well, do you want to just tell us a little bit about who you are, about your family, a bit about that, and then about you as a child growing up and that kind of thing? Is that right?
Hello, everybody. My name's Paul Sanderson, 51 years young. I work as chaplain in 2 schools now here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and at Sir Robert Woodard, formerly known as Bounston, over in Lancing and Something on a Thursday, Friday. I have 4 wonderful children, and my wife Heather, and a dog Bella, and several fish, and et cetera, et cetera. And we've lived in Littlehampton since 1996. Prior to that was Kingston upon Thames. Yeah. And it goes back to Cheltenham, Gloucestershire, which is where I was born, in the home of Elim Pentecostal movement, which is where my dad was his first pastor. We got set in Cheltenham. And St Paul's Hospital was my place of birth, I was told, but a year later moved to Nottingham for a few years, placement there, and then Kingston upon Thames was kind of my childhood teenage home until we moved here when I was 26.
So tell me a bit about you growing up as a child, your relationship with God, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so got dragged along to church every Sunday morning and Sunday evening. That's why I got big ears. I think it's because I had to go because we was the pastor's kid. So you got to be there, and I was the only teenager, young person there at the church. It was really boring, and then the evening it was even more boring. I got used to doing my homework, which was great. I got it all done on Sunday night because it was done at church. But there was something in it, particularly, and I think I've told some of you this story before. Millie, who's no longer with us now, I had the privilege of going to her funeral a couple of years ago. Millie was an older member of the congregation who, when I was 13, 14, 15, she'd have a chocolate bar ready for me at the end of the service. And that was initially my main motive of saying hello to Millie at the end of church. How are you, Millie? Love to see you, Millie. But as the months went on, it wasn't the chocolate bar that came important. It was the identity. It was the recognition. It's the how are you and how is school going, that Millie kept me going to church when there was no reason, really. It was boring. I had no friends. What was this about? And then a gentleman called Ishmael came and spoke at our church, and he spotted me as a 14-year-old, a spotty 14-year-old. He spotted me, and he saw something in me and said, why don't you come and help me out at this event called Spring Harvest to work with children? And I thought, all right, I'm bored here, so I might as well be bored somewhere else, so I'll go with you. And had an amazing week of seeing God at work through children and young people. And I thought, whoa, I'm missing out on something here. This is not just for them, this is for me. And it reminded me afresh of, as a child, my dad ran a camp called Elim Bible Camp on the Isle of Wight, and it was 2 weeks with one shower in the middle, and a lot of grungy kids from all over the UK, including me, and I watched them worship. And I remember in a tent saying to my dad, can I be this Christian thing? And he prayed for me, and that was kind of the start of the spark. But it was in my teenage years with Ishmael and the Glory Company, as was, that I thought, yeah, this is not just for me. This is something that can be through me and into others. And so I learned a lot from the children and young people I worked with as a teenager, and I'm not back from that day.
And then what was life like for you as a young person then? So you knew God when you were young, a child, but did you have to make some choices when you were like a young person? What happened in those years?
Well, my dad, you don't get paid much when you're a minister of an Elim church, and my mum wasn't kind of allowed to work. It wasn't the thing to do in those early days. So we were on free school meals, and it kind of threw out a whole, well, I didn't know any different, but you go a special queue to get your ticket, and then you have to go to a special queue to get your food and your ticket in. And there was this kind of polarisation of all those that were poor and vulnerable, and I was one of them with my free school meal. I was desperate not, and all my mates went to school on the bus, and I had to walk. And one of my mates, Stephen Tibbs, year 7, his dad ran Safeway, and he would pay for my bus fare so I could hang out with my mates. And I saw the generosities of those who had for those that didn't, and I saw the pain, and I felt the pain that those that don't have could experience when you've got nothing. And it kind of stirred something in with me about an injustice, and this is not right. People shouldn't be treated differently because they don't have an income. And so I didn't find an outlet for that until early on, until later on. In the early days, it was just kind of what's right, what's wrong, you know, when you're going out with girls, what can you do, what can't you do. I never got involved in any of the drug scene, although it was kind of around. And I was pretty much a squeaky clean teenager going through life. My little brother, who was 6 years younger than me, he did all the opposite to me, and he wouldn't mind me telling you that either. And I'm a really good friend of him. But yeah, for whatever reason, I was protected from some of those challenges that many young people go down, and I'm grateful for that. But I also now have the privilege of working with many young people who, for whatever reason, have slipped and have fallen, and they want to hand back up.
So, you then started working with young people. So you got presumably you got married then to Heather.
Yeah, 21.
How old were you then?
I was 21 years old.
21 when you got married.
I remember going to the pub and telling everyone I was engaged, and they said, "Oh, is your girlfriend pregnant then?" I was like, to be honest, we haven't had sex yet, so no chance of that one. And it's like, no. Well, why are you getting married then? And I said, well, I think I found the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. And that was an interesting message into, because I was just turned 21, so come out of college and a bit of building work that I'd done. And so, wonderful choice that we made early on because we just felt so perfect together.
And then what brought you down to Littlehampton and ultimately to working with young people? What was that journey like?
Well, the Wickbourne Chapel, which is now the Wickbourne Centre, they had a real passion for the Wick estate. And the vicar of that place at the time, a guy called Kevin, he'd managed to cobble together some church people with money and the council with money and agencies with money, but wanted to channel it through a Christian agency. So they got in touch with Spurgeon's, which is a national charity. And meanwhile, I was a youth worker in a church, in my home church in Surbiton, and we just had our first child, Zach. And my parents had just separated, and I was going through all the pain and the grief of that loss as a 6-year-old. And my first son had been born, and so Heather had given up her work. She was earning twice what I was earning in London, and we were skint. We didn't know how we were going to do this. And I met my kind of mentor in church, and I told him the story. And he went back to his office, and he worked at Youth Work magazine. And that day, he had a phone call from Kevin in Littlehampton, who said, "We've got this money together, and we're looking at trying to attract the right person to come and set up a project on the Wick estate." And John Buckridge went, "I know who you need to talk to." And literally within 24 hours, I was on the phone to a stranger from Wick who said, "Would you consider coming down to this job?" And so I came down. We'd been to Littlehampton because of Ishmael, and Heather and I would come down to kiss on Climping Beach before we had kids, because you could do that before you had kids, and and just have wonderful days out down there. And came down, and as I say, the rest is history. That just everything rolled together beautifully. So I moved away from Kingston, and this community became my home and has been for the last 27 years.
So tell us a bit about what happened when you with Wire. What were some of the things that you started, and what were some of the stories that you saw at that time?
My bosses said, "Paul, shut up and listen." And they knew me quite well. And it was early days. We got 2 ears and 1 mouth. And it's when I started realising we've got to do a lot more listening as people of faith, because we think we know all the answers. And often we tell people what we think the answers are, and we haven't allowed people to share with them the pain and the journey they're going on. So my bosses said, "Paul, 3 months, shut up and listen." So I went out into the community and listened to people in various different settings, from hairdressers to the laundrette to the pubs. It's all part of the work and research, of course. And went out and what do you feel about this community? What's right? What's not right? What's working? And we put all that together into like a little report called "What Makes Wick Tick." And it's in the library now. Apparently, I've been told it's kind of an archive document that's been put in the library. And we had 13 dreams that the community had come up with. And 12 of them, I thought, it's all possible. And we kicked on. The 13th one, they wanted a purpose-built, excellent community centre with a cafe in it and a meeting place in it. And I thought, well, that's going to cost millions, so forget that one, but let's work on the others. And so we set up with people like Elle and John and Mark and many others in this room who, as young people engaged, as well as adults, Dave drove all the way across to Romania with a group of students. Others in this space who've given. And we just started given money and we were there at a time where there was money out there to do community work, and it rolled and it grew, and at one stage we were employing 26 people working in various things from breakfast clubs to radio stations to summer festivals. And then the Wick Centre came along, which of course, the Wickbourne Centre came along, which was number 13 on the list. And so you just go, wow, I've been privileged to ride a wave of prayer and of prophecy that the generations before in this whole community, across all the churches, have been praying for and fasting for 30, 40 years ago. And I have the privilege of getting my surfboard out and ride those waves of prayer into this place right now.
And then, of course, the most amazing thing happened was that you were given a job here in the academy.
It's hilarious.
Which is amazing, isn't it? So
the first time I walked into this school, right,
yeah.
There was a deputy head teacher, and she said, "Oh, I like what you're doing." This was in the early days of the Wire. So she gave me a room at Littlehampton Community School to paint and decorate and to turn into a counselling centre. But she forgot to tell the head teacher. So the head teacher got cross when he found out and contacted this local vicar called Roger Purdham, who got really cross when he found out. And Roger's a best friend of mine now, but he was running Parkside Church. So he wrote to my boss at Spurgeon and says, "What is this person doing trying to undermine all the good work the churches are doing by running a counselling centre in the school?" And it's surreal how sometimes we fall out when we start, but they could become our strongest friendships. And I realised then that there was a possibility of working in this school, but we're talking 25 years ago. And the head teacher, on his leaving do, and I was invited because I was a governor then, apologised publicly for the way he handled my initial interaction with the school. And I was just doing what I felt was right, but I hadn't gone through the right channels. And now, so I was a governor here for 9 years before becoming chaplain here 10 years ago, with a chapel space in the heart of the school. And it was designed that the representative of the Christian faith would be at the heart of all that goes on in this community. And that we could draw those of all faiths and no faiths together to find a way together to discover whose image we're made in. And that no matter what mistakes we've made in life, God will never stop loving us. He can't stop loving us anymore. And he won't stop loving us any less. And that's my message that I've had the privilege of living out for 10 years.
So how did you become a chaplain then? Because, like, we are in a faith school,
yes.
We're in a school that is really
Designated
Church
Christian.
of England.
Almost.
Church of England, isn't it? Well, that's what
they want it to be.
So how did you, so you weren't ordained or anything?
I wasn't ordained,
so
I didn't have a degree.
How did this even happen?
My mum must have been involved because I reckon she wrote the job description. Because when I saw it, I looked at it, I thought, my mum could have written this. This has got my name all over it. But I didn't have a degree. I wasn't ordained. I wasn't wearing the dog collar. And they all were at the interview. And it was interesting. It was a 2-day interview in a hotel in Hove, because it was also for Sir Robert Woodard as well, ironically. Oh yeah, I've just thought about that. They were interviewing for Sir Robert Woodard chaplain and for the chaplain here. And I said, I don't want the Sir Robert Woodard. I'm only focused on Littlehampton. I actually said that at the interview. Such a liar I was, because there I am now. And you just felt anointed, and you just felt I was well out of my depth. I haven't got a clue how the Church of England works. When I got the job, 4 weeks, I'm a lady in Walsingham, which has got a shrine to St Mary and Our Lady Mary, and the smells about, and we're praying for the dead, and it's incredible and amazing, because I've learned so much about that culture, having come out of the Ealing Pentecostal and being a part of the Pioneer, and it's so wonderful to work across the spectrum of faith. And how I'm here, it's God's miracle, and I'm still here.
What do you love most about being a chaplain?
The ability. So Thursday, but this week I was trying to count. I've spoken to over 3,000 young people in 4 different schools around burdens and around breathing. In our own school, we had our own Thanksgiving assembly on Tuesday. Then I go over to Boundstone, do assemblies there. I was at Lancing College doing their Eucharist service in the morning, and then at Hurstpier Point on Friday doing their break-up for half-term 2 mass celebrations. And I get invited because they like the working class bloke to come into the rich schools. And they're doing their bit for charity and connecting. And talking about burdens and talking about breathing and the importance of those. But on Thursday morning at Sir Robert Woodard, this year 10 girl comes in, never met her. I said, can I talk to you? And I was like, yeah, come in. She's got a pizza for lunch break. And she sits down and she takes the first bite, and she said, my dad abandoned me when I was 4 and I hate him. I've never seen him and I hate him, but he abandoned me. And I've discovered I've got 13 others, brothers and sisters. And my granddad's dying with cancer, and he's my rock. And I messed about with boys, and I've just stopped smoking, and I gave up cannabis 4 weeks ago. And she's just going, and I say, pause, eat another bit of pizza, let's take a breath, because it's getting cold. And then she carries on. And I said, you okay? She said, yeah, I just feel so much lighter, thank you. And I haven't done anything other than listen. And then she goes, the bell goes, and off she goes. And I just sit there in my new chapel office space thinking, the power of listening. Almost the confessional that took place there as somebody, I said, have you told anybody this? And I've not told anybody this, what I've gone through. I just, you've been here a few weeks, and people said you're a nice guy to talk to. So to know that the young people carrying so many burdens, so much load, so much stress and pressure and grief that's historic or present, and then suddenly they can just vomit it all up and not be judged, not being kind of, you shouldn't have done that. No, just listen and show the love that I believe in, and then maybe have a conversation about that love one day.
That's incredible. And then another thing that I think is really incredible is that you get to have prayer week here. Just tell us a little bit about prayer week and why that is so significant.
Yeah, prayer for some of us has taken on a different spectrum. I'm really into contemplation now, creating spaces of pauses, allowing time just to think and to hear and to see God at work in creation and in the person next to you. And so for 10 years we've been running a prayer space in the chapel and in the classroom where you can look at forgiveness and self-esteem and communication. We've got mirrors and bubble tubes, and you've seen it if you've been in there. We've even now got the prophetic team praying over the prayers and giving responses to those prayers. It's incredible. Whether they read them or not, I don't know, but God works in amazing ways. And so we have volunteers, many in this space, come and help young people engage in prayer for the first time. And we've seen so many things released. We've seen so much pain put up on the wall. And we had an accidental primary school come in last year because they were here for something else, and it was raining. I said, why not come in the prayer space? And so this academic year, Prayer Week is going to be like it always is, and then we're going to keep, I forgot to ask, is it all right if we, anyway, I'll ask later. No, actually, I've got a good order. Is it okay if one Sunday this is not available, because we're going to keep it set up over the weekend so that on the Monday all the primary schools are going to come in through to the Thursday, and our young people who've done Prayer Week before will be facilitating the primary schools with Prayer Week. So I won't need any help that week, sorry, but thank you. And we're going to see that trickle down into the primary schools, just to give people a chance to stop. We have silence at TLA when we have exams, brilliant. We have silence when we have a fire drill, fantastic. If you're sent to Intex because you're naughty, you have to sit in silence. We need to reclaim silence back, because that's where God speaks, in the silence. And so at Prayer Space we do that. And often it's the bubble zone, and people just sitting in stillness with a bit of music and some bubbles. And they say, this is the best way. Why? Because I just paused, and I just stopped, and I just remembered that I'm a human being, not always a human doing. And yeah, once we get people to a place of being a human being, they can see the image they're made in.
And tell us, what do you feel God is saying to you personally at the minute? What's He's been speaking to you about?
Breathing. It's something we all do very well or very badly. But actually what I've discovered is we're not doing breathing very well. We don't breathe from our proper capacity of our lungs. We don't get the oxygen we need down to the psoas, which is the muscle of our soul, which means we've not always got the energy to do. We should be getting 90% of our energy from the oxygen and the air we breathe. We're getting about 15 to 20%. What's this got to do with your faith, Paul? Well, the pneuma, or the ruha, as we know it, is breath and Holy Spirit. And when God breathed on this cosmos, this void, things happen. And when Jesus walked in and breathed on his disciples, they didn't say, have you been eating garlic? They received the Holy Spirit, because the breath has power. The words we say and speak over people break or heal people. So we need to start breathing better. So I'm getting a generation of young people to breathe. And so we sit in the chapel, or we do staff briefings where we have our hands on our tummy and we breathe in through our nose and we breathe out through our mouth. Because so many young people and adults are living with anxiety and panic attacks and worry, and they're not breathing properly. And you can't work with people who are having a panic attack. You have to get them to a place of breathing. And when they're breathing, that stillness that comes, then they can feel God at work. They can see God at work. They can hear God at work through love and encouragement and value, and start to rebuild self-esteem. So I'm getting people breathing, and then when we're breathing, we're looking at all the burdens that we can lift off people. Burdens of fear, burdens of comparison. And so I've been carrying bricks around the last week in a rucksack, going to all these schools, the private schools particularly, and walking in, doing the sermon, as they call it, with the bricks in the rucksack, and then revealing these bricks and pointing them out and saying, fear is in so many lives. Let's not fight it, let's understand it, let's use it. Telling the story of Greta Thunberg, the new prophetic voice to this generation, who, no matter of her mutism and her Asperger's and her depression that's been diagnosed, she has used those things as a springboard to communicate change about an incredible issue. And she's 16. It was 13 that she had the revelation that this is what she's got to do. And as a 16-year-old, you know her story. And that's all because she's recognised her burdens and she's standing on them, not trying to fight them, but using them to proclaim this incredible message of change. And so, yeah, that's what I'm living with at the moment. That's what I'm sharing with young people and adults, if they'll listen, because we're all change makers, and often we're all carrying rucksacks of stuff. Let's not fight them. Let's understand them. Let's share them with each other, and let's use them to be a springboard to make change.
That's brilliant. And what do you feel thankful for in your life?
Well, tick box family. Obviously, so grateful for my family that I have, very close. They bring incredible joy and incredible pain. Choices that they make, attitudes that they bring, I bring into that, can be like, oh, what is this about? And then you have moments of joy and life and inspiration. My faith is so important to me. My food, I love food. I think food is really important. I love eating around a table. I love cooking. It's Promise's birthday party tonight. She's got 15 mates around. I'm making pizzas while they do whatever they do. And I love all that. And I love watching people eat and enjoy each other's company around a table. I love football. West Ham, rubbish at the moment again. But I love my football and my friendship. If there was an order, it's faith and family and friendships and food and football. They're all F's as well. But I love yesterday driving back from Arundel. My son's just bought a flat and I'm helping decorate it. I drove him back as the sun's going down that Ford road that takes you past the station. And then 2 swans take off from the field to my left and just take over the road while I'm driving slowly because the lights are flashing on the Ford crossing. And the sun's going down on the right, a little bit like that. And I just watch and I'm thinking, don't have a crash. But just want to watch these 2 swans who've been together, no doubt, since the early days and will be together, and if one dies, that's it. And they just fly off into the sunset. I'm going, there's God right there speaking to me in terms of peace and community and togetherness and creation, just as I'm driving back with dirty fingernails from paint. And so that's what I love. I love creation, I love friendships, and I love my family, and all of God that they say to me, all of Christ, because I'm seeing Christ so much more now than I was in my 20s and 30s. I'm seeing Christ in so many more things that I just ignored, or I was too tired, or I wasn't looking up enough. And now I'm seeing Christ in almost everything, which is really exciting.
And one last thing, I know I haven't prepped you for this, but what can we pray for you for the school here, for the job that you do? What support and what prayer do you need?
Many of you are praying, and I feel it. I know there are people praying far and wide for the work of the chapel and for my work here. I think that there's a strength that's required, and I feel it. So I'm breathing better, so I'm stronger. I used to get to 2 o'clock, and literally I could doze off at my desk because of the emotional load and because of the spiritual battle, in one sense, that we're facing. So those continued prayers are incredible. Words of encouragement. There's a whole bunch of millies out there, and there's a whole bunch of young people in here. And, you don't have to do. I don't like chocolate anymore. I don't eat chocolate anymore. But we need more millies for these young people. We need older people who will give them time and ask them how they are. And they're not going to bite. And they might not. They might grunt, or they might out everything that's going on. But we need congregations full of millies who will be that love and that care and that genuine interest to the younger generation. Because I can't do it all. I'm not set myself to do it all. But I can support millies to do that. So yeah, a generation of millies out there would be wonderful. Male and female millies. That's not a problem.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul. Anything else that you want to say?
No, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Well, we're very, very grateful for all the things that you do and all the things that you have done in the community here, and just your heart and your passion for this place. And we are very grateful to God that you are here. And I know that. So there's you doing a bit with the change in job. Just say a little bit about that.
Yeah. So Monday to Wednesday here at TLA, doing what I do. Hopefully, Mikey, did you have your interview, Mikey? Yeah. How'd it go? Did you pass? Excellent. Michael is becoming an unpaid employee of this school, but he is paid by Arun Church, and he'll be sitting at my desk Thursdays to Fridays. The chapel door will be open again, and lunch and then he'll have young people coming in and vomiting up stuff while they're eating their pizza, and that's wonderful, because one of my biggest regrets of leaving TLA 2 days a week was there's a need here Thursday and Fridays. It doesn't stop. Those young people don't say, okay, I won't have any problems today, and of course there's incredible staff that are sitting right here. We've got the Gisbys and the Webbs and all the rest of it, showing love in a very professional way. But Mike is going to be here to pick up that slack. And also, God multiplies things. There's a lady called Janet Webb who is going to come and be a chaplain one day a week at the sixth form. And I've been waiting for years to have a team, and now I've got 2 of them, and I won't be here to work at that team. So Thursday morning, early doors, I drive over to Lancing, try and miss all that rubbish traffic that I know some of you do. And I've got a little office, and I've got a chapel that's not very well designed. It's got a wooden floor, so 2 people whispering to each other. Everybody hears. So we're getting that carpeted. And then we're going to open it up as a space that staff and students can use to celebrate, to dine in, and to take communion in, because we do that. We've got communion this week here at TLA. I need the churches at Shoreham to rise up like you guys and the other churches have, to get behind the prayer week that we're going to do there after Christmas, because we're taking prayer week on the road to Sir Robert Woodard Academy. And who knows where, if I can find a way of rising up individuals who've got a passion to do chaplaincy, like Mikey's got the passion and the ability, that maybe I can start little fires elsewhere, spend a little bit too much time on the road, not get too far from young people, but see more chaplaincy happen in other schools, maybe an Amering school, that would be a miracle, but then this is a miracle here, never thought it would happen. Wouldn't that be great? And I guess I've got 10 years worth of skills to throw into that, so let's see what happens, eh?
That's brilliant. Right, well, we would love to. Let's give him a clap, shall we? Paul, do you want to go and stand in the middle? And let's stand up, shall we? The band, I wonder if...